Okay, we have some breaking weather information, a brand new tornado warning that has just come out. Let's go right to radar, show you what we're talking about. This tornado warning that is in effect until 5 o'clock. It includes parts of Hampton, Newport News, Suffolk, and Isle of Wight County, and it's the area around Smithfield that I'm concerned about. You might be able to see in there that little bit of a hook that is showing up right in there. And I'm putting right in there just to the west of Lawson. That's concerning, as anytime we start to see that little hook showing up, we do have the potential there for some rotation. I'll switch things over here, take a look at the velocity, and yes, there as well, you can see that we're starting to see a little bit of what looks like could be some rotation right in there. When we talk about the radar, we look for greens next to reds, and that's the area that we're really concerned about right there around Lawson. There's an updated sweep coming in from the radar just around the downtown Smithfield area. Lawson and along Highway 10 over towards Smithfield and Moonfield Drive. So that is just getting ready to move over towards the James River. That's the James River Bridge there at the corner of your screen right in there. That's where we're watching just west of there. Near Smith Neck Road, you're sort of in line for that storm. Over towards Battery Park, you're in line for that storm as well. So that's a look at the velocity. Let's see what kind of wind speeds are showing up on the radar. Not a lot showing up on the radar with that as far as those wind speeds. But again, when we first started to see that a little bit of a hook right in there, right around the town of Smithfield and up towards Lawson, that's the area that we're really concerned about. Old Stage Highway and up towards Mogarts Beach, Days Point Road, Moonfield Drive. So this is the extreme northern part there of Surry County, getting ready to move across the river over towards southern parts of Newport News. So it does include a little bit there of Newport News towards the east end as well. But again, we see that hook. That's the first sign that there could be something trying to spin up with the radar. Let's see if we're seeing anything else with any kind of debris detection. No, we're not seeing that, but we are certainly seeing that turbulence. And again, where we have that red next to the green, that is the area that we're most concerned about. Let me put that warning back on here so that I can read you some of the information from that warning and tell you, sort of give you some specifics on what areas we're talking about. That includes the extreme northeastern part of Isle of Wight County. Excuse me, I think I was saying Surry earlier. I meant to say Isle of Wight County. It includes just a little bit of Suffolk and parts of Newport News. At 4:36 p.m., severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located near Smithfield, moving to the east at 25 miles per hour. And that's where we see a little bit of a hook. I will put the tracker on there, moving this at around 25 miles per hour to sort of give you an idea of what areas would be in line. That would be the city of Lawson or the town of Lawson here right about now, in Battery Park around 4:47. Chief Meteorologist Jeff Lawson is here with me as well, so he's going to join into the coverage with that storm that right now is across northern Isle of Wight County near Smithfield and over towards the town of Lawson, where we are seeing some of that rotation looking a little bit stronger now around Battery Park Road and the town of Smithfield. So if you're in Battery Park, Boundary Road, Smith's Neck Road, Rainbow Road, heading over towards the river, you want to take shelter now. Go to an interior room. That's a room where you don't have any windows. Think of a bathroom maybe that doesn't have windows, or a closet. That's the best place to be in this type of situation. Jeff?
Evan, I noticed you were taking a look at this. Obviously, this is the velocity. Is this mean velocity or regular velocity?
This is a storm relative.
Storm relative, okay. So people out there saying, what's he talking about? And if you've watched us over the years, you know that we talk about storms having different methods that we can analyze them using. Well, and it really does make a difference, because sometimes it won't look like there's a storm on one type of radar, but on the other type it will. So this is a regular weather radar here, a Doppler radar, and it simply looks at where it's raining. That's all it's measuring is raindrops. The other one he was showing is the velocity. This one also is debris detection. This is just a different type now of use of the radar, the Doppler radar, to see if it's picking up anything and lifting it into the atmosphere. And on this one, we don't really see it. But now the two different types of velocity profile, those measure the wind direction and the wind speeds, and then it assigns colors to them. So if you have reds, that means it's moving away from the radar site. Think of it like tail lights on a car. The other colors, the yellows, the greens, mainly the greens, those are moving toward the radar site. So if you get two different areas, one moving away and one moving toward you, that shows that they're spinning. And sometimes if the storm's slowly moving, it's easy to pick up no matter what the case is. If it's fast moving, it's harder to pick it up if you're just sitting still basically at the side of the road. So what they do with these algorithms is they ride alongside the storm and they can see what it is doing. Imagine looking, and I've used this analogy before, in a NASCAR race. If you're just sitting in the stands, you can't really see what's happening inside that car. But you get in another car riding next to it and you can see very clearly. That's why we use these different methods to indicate whether a storm indeed is rotating or not. The fact that it's rotating with this one doesn't show up on this. Now, yes, Evan mentioned it has this little curve to it. 70% of the time, the curve means that it's severe, but doesn't really have a tornado with it. In this case, it does. So that's why I wanted him to check both of those. That is moving. What's the speed on this? Did you say?
It's moving about 30 miles per hour.
At 30 miles per hour. So again, roughly in this area here, around Battery Park Road, over here near, what does that say, Moonfield Drive, down here near Smithfield Boulevard toward Battery Park. So this is a tornado warning as that storm continues to move to the east-southeast. At this point, it is radar indicated. We have no confirmation it's on the ground, but as the storm over Virginia Beach a month or so ago showed us, that one had no confirmation it was on the ground, and literally within a span of a minute or two, it got on the ground, went from a 1 to a 2 to an F3 within 5 minutes or less, and then went back to being an F1. So go to the lowest level of the room, an interior room right now. This is at least a funnel cloud, and there's a decent chance that, again, if it's not now, that at some point it could spin down to the ground and actually produce a tornado. So every one of these, you have to treat it like it is a legitimate tornado, and it's not just from this picture, as I said. So let's put the tracker back on here, talk about it at 35 miles per hour. Again, it'll move into northern areas there of Isle of Wight and then eventually continue over, maybe catching northern Suffolk. The hope is that as it gets out over the water here, the James River, you can't really tell, but it's that sort of the green outline there. Here's the western side of the James River. Here's the eastern side. The water, relatively cool. So as it gets out over the water, maybe we can get lucky and have it lift into a water spout. But right now, the fact that we have these colors in tight proximity means that we have rotation. Same thing on that different view here. That's clearly a rotating cell near Cypress Run Drive as it spins around near Battery Park and works its way near Smith's Neck Road and off to the east. Whippingham Parkway is another one. You need to be taking cover. Any of those areas that we just mentioned, and then crossing over Route 17 bridge there and eventually getting onto the peninsula. And the reason we talk about these next to each other, as I said, indicates rotation. If they're very spread out, you would have a very broad area. And this is interesting too. There is some turbulence there. So that's just another indicator that there's a lot going on with spin and stuff in the atmosphere. Hard to tell with this if it's picking up any debris. The fact that it sticks out like that, typically we would see that sort of by itself. So I can't tell you with any certainty, 100% certainty, whether or not this is a tornado or not. but you have to treat it like it is one and take cover. And I'm not just talking here, south side and the west side of the James River in places, there from Battery Neck down to Bartlett and Smith's Neck Road. If you live over in Newport News, it will not take this storm long to get to you. So if you live in extreme southern areas of Newport News or stretching all the way down across the mouth of the river there and getting close to back into south side, you need to take cover again as that entire area is moving to the east. And it's interesting, none of these storms throughout the afternoon, you get this quite often. Now this is a brand new severe thunderstorm watch. So you're under two different warnings. You're under a severe thunderstorm watch and a tornado watch for the areas just to the west of the James, as well as the southern tip of Newport News. The rest of the area going to be impacted by this storm includes the rest of the peninsula, other than Newport News, southern Newport News, Hampton, Grandview, all the way up to Poquoson, continuing north from there. You're also under a warning, but not for the tornadic part of the storm. You're under a warning for this large hail and strong gusty winds, potentially over 60 miles per hour, that are moving to the east. So if you live from Beachmont down to Beaconsdale, basically the southern part of the peninsula at all, you need to be taking cover also because of the severe thunderstorm potential. But this is a very significant hook. As I mentioned, it's only 30. If you just showed somebody that's all you showed them. Statistically, we would look at that and say, okay, the odds are 30% that is an actual tornado. It's one of the indicators, but again, it's not only not foolproof, it's only about 30% of the time. But that clearly shows very distinct rotation there, and that's just off the regular radar. That doesn't even include the fact that we can look at the wind direction itself and also get a look at that. And that's all these bright reds and a little bit of yellow right there against the green. So, and this is just a different view. Again, one of those is just, looking at it basically from a static standpoint. The other one's riding alongside next to it to get a better look at the internal structure and not the overall sort of structure of the storm as it moves through. So right now, there's a where's that from?
That's our LFCU camera in Newport News.
Yeah. So Evan, what are you looking at right now?
The main thing that I really am watching is, this is what we would classically look for in a supercell thunderstorm, that hook that is showing up there. If you're just looking at just this unusual shape right in there, that's an indication of the overall storm rotating around and maybe something spinning up there on the south side of it. And then even outside of the warning, that pink and almost into the whites that's showing up there around Mary Point Estates, Beverly Hills, Boxley Hills, over towards Carriage Hill, Kiln Creek. So we're up near the Newport News Williamsburg Airport. That is potentially some very large hail. And what we are watching is the potential there for hail up to 1.5 inches in diameter. And that's what we're seeing on the hail potential there as well. There's the latest scan, 1.25 inch hail.
I was going to say, to me, I'm surprised it's not even a little more than that, because when I was doing, the cut-ins earlier for the severe weather that came through Norfolk, for example, we never got to that sort of whitish looking level. We only had pinks as they came through downtown Norfolk. And when we went outside, Craig and Evan and I all looked outside, and it wasn't even this bright, and we had some pretty significant hail. So this should be even larger. So again, has the potential to be around an inch, because it's over an inch aloft. Some of that will melt on the way down, and that's why we hope that it gets under an inch, because then it doesn't damage cars and break windows and that type of thing. That's why they use that 1 inch criteria. But you can see this entire area of eastern Virginia, and this was how they originally put it out. You see, it did not include southeastern Virginia Beach, but the local office said, that's silly. We can't be that specific and only say it's half of a city or half of a county and not the rest of it. So actually, it does include our entire viewing area in Virginia, all the way up from here, Hampton Roads, to the north. So again, a couple of things going on here with the consistent cell producing damaging winds and hail across the southern part of the peninsula, and then the extreme southern part of the peninsula, but really more like just crossing the river over the JRB and heading over here, Route 17 on the west side from Smithfield East, that's where, so thunderstorm wind gusts of 40. But that's the area then that has this potential tornado showing a classic hook echo, and right near Nike Park Road, and again, continuing over to the JRB, Route 17, Whippingham Parkway, and moving off to the north and east at 35 miles per hour. So that was, again, the one look. Let's put, again, Evan, on here, the tracker for people. Obviously, whether it's 1 minute from now or 5 minutes from now, if you live in some of these extreme, well, even extreme northern areas there of Suffolk, but really any portion there of northern Suffolk, you need to be taking cover. Luckily, a large area that it's going to be covering here is out over the water here in the very short term. So once it gets offshore, which will be in the next probably 5 minutes or so, it'll get out over water. Then it'll become, for sure, even if it's just a funnel cloud now, it'll become a water spout because there's nothing to impede it from spinning around. So as it then moves offshore, it'll certainly be a funnel cloud, no doubt about that, and then head over toward, again, maybe Terminal Boulevard, Newport News, extreme southern areas there of Newport News. But right now it is certainly showing that classic sort of look of a hook and moving from Nike Park Road off to the north and the east. So as we said, especially, we don't have a lot of areas or a lot of homes in the area that have basements. We certainly don't, I would think, in some of those areas right there along the James River. So right here, again, you're probably not going to be able to go to a basement, go to an interior room, away from windows, a hall closet, something like that on your lowest floor. If you hear the sound of a roaring sound, meaning there's a tornado definitely coming toward you, then you might even want to not only do that, but get in the bathtub and pull, a mattress over you. I had friends in the Virginia Beach tornado a month or so ago that said it classic sound of a tornado coming, and they all ran for cover because typically they would say, tornado watch. Most of the time, those aren't even anything to be worried about. They said you could just feel the difference. So some of you in this area right now are definitely being impacted by a very, very strong thunderstorm. It is severe in terms of the hail, probably in terms of some of the wind speeds that'll knock down trees. Again, the hail over 1 inch aloft, probably close to an inch or so, hopefully a little bit under, because they used to say 3/4 of an inch was severe hail. And then they found that really wasn't damaging cars where you needed to have it, redone or breaking windows. Now they say an inch. So hopefully we can get that under an inch as it melts a bit before it comes back down to the ground. But right now it is this area we are talking about right near Bartlett, just on the west side of the James River, pretty close to where, Suffolk and Isle of Wight come together, and then moving off to the east, right over the Monitor Merrimack here eventually, as you come down 664 and branch off through southern Newport News and head down into Southside into Suffolk, that is the area that is also still going to be worrying about the path of this potential storm coming up. So I say it's going over water, and it is here very shortly. Hopefully it will lift up before it hits, any of the cars or anything that are traveling along. I'm not sure what they do in a situation like this, if they actually close down. I've never asked, I guess, in all the years I've been here, whether in a situation like this they would actually close and stop the traffic on 664 from getting on that bridge and exposing them to a potential tornado. So it is moving again right now to the east at about 35 miles per hour. Evan?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to pull up the Twitter here of Virginia, of 511, and we have all right, so they have extended that tornado warning now, and you can hear, we are under that tornado warning here at the station, so that's what you are hearing. Everybody's phones are going off because of that warning, again, that just came out. We received a report of a tornado on the ground in Carrollton, Jeff. That is the latest. So that was when the storm was a little bit off towards the west. And now we have, again, what has been confirmed by the National Weather Service, a tornado that was on the ground earlier near Carrollton. That's when we were seeing some of that hook, and now we have that brand new tornado warning that is in effect until 5:30.
All right, so again, let's sort of give people a indication of where it extended to. Let's go now to that picture we just had up there. Widen it a little bit. There are a ton of lines here. You got yellow lines. You got two different outlines in red. And the one that, again, is the newly issued one overlaps the previous one. So the previous one was from Smithfield over north of Newport News, back down just pretty almost parallel to the Monitor Merrimack in 664, and then cut back to Smithfield. So now the storm is right in the middle of that, but they have issued a new one. They don't want to wait until the storm gets over on the edge and there's no overlap. They're warning everybody now, because this is a confirmed tornado on the ground that, again, is very close to Bartlett and moving to the southeast. So now it'll pass over. It's hard to, if you're not familiar with the area, that one area, and I'll step out here and show you. Here we go. This is Craney Island. So again, I know some people work there, but it's really it's uninhabited, really, for the most part. So a lot of that area, you don't have to worry about it. But all here near Harbor Point Drive, and as you head up 664 and just get ready to get onto the Monitor Merrimack near Armistead Forest, those are the areas that are next to be in line. That's why it was extended. And what time is this until 4:50? Oh, no, that's the report of the one at 4:55. So the new warning is
Until 5:30.
Until 5:30, okay. So typically they would be near 337 going through ports. No, that goes through Virginia Beach and on up into areas. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's up by the base in 564.
Yeah, I was trying to think what 337 was, though. Some people that live on it probably know what 337 is. I can't remember what exact street that is. I guess it goes over toward the naval base.
Yeah, I think that's Terminal Boulevard.
Okay, 337 is probably Terminal. So those are the areas that are going to get, again, impacted if the storm continues to move where it is heading at the current time. Was it still 35 when they put the new warning out?
Let's see. The latest is that it was moving east at 25.
Oh, okay. So that changed from the previous speed. The other thing that's interesting is we don't see as much of a curl. Now, that can be a hopeful sign that maybe, it's not rotating as much. But again, they're not directly related. When you have the regular radar, as I mentioned, it doesn't always, show a significant rotation. It's only the Doppler radar that can do that. So here are some of the times getting up toward Eclipse at 4:59, which is, right now. It's basically over Eclipse, that potential tornado, and heading eventually over here toward Huntersville at around 5:09, then Armistead Forest at 5:12, Briarwood at 5:16. And you can see it's picking out those locations, and you say, well, nothing to the north, because again, that's Craney Island and there's nothing out there. And then eventually, right toward the end of the warning is when we would expect it to cross over here, the Elizabeth River, and get back into the west side there of Norfolk, near the naval base and on down toward Algonquin Park, etc. Still severe weather right now. I'm sure you're having just incredible downpours, hail. I was telling, I said it on the air, and I was telling Evan and Craig earlier that when I was outside, I looked at it. I was in the garage, opened up the garage door here at the station to be able to look out, and the hail was coming in and bouncing off the cars, not enough big enough quite to damage it, but it was a scary sight. The wind was blowing probably 50 miles per hour, luckily not 60 to knock down any trees or anything, but straight sideways wind. It was a scary looking situation, and that was when we knew it was just a regular thunderstorm, albeit a severe one, but it was a thunderstorm, not a tornado. Now we have this tornado reported on the ground where Evan just put the symbol up just to the east of Smithfield, and right near, this is literally, it's hard to pick out, but that's literally the edge of the James River that I'm pointing out right there. And then there's the warning.
Yeah, that's the thunderstorm warning.
Yeah, the thunderstorm warning being updated. So again, if you carry this, Now, the thunderstorm warning is aligned sort of northeast to southwest, but the tornado warning is moving east-southeast. So again, it is moving right now. We haven't shown it in a while. Let's go back to the pictures from the, velocity and the different wind directions and see what we can tell from that. And if these were together, I wouldn't be nearly as worried about it because it would be a very broad area. And I mentioned this and used the analogy, think of it like an ice skater. If you're watching the Olympics and they're out there spinning around, when they're all spread out and their arms are wide, they, move pretty slowly. Then as they bring it in, it goes into that tight little, very fast spin. It's the exact same things, it's just angular momentum, inertia, et cetera. So that's why the tighter the rotation, the faster the wind speeds start to go. And that's what we're looking at, again, when we get the very tight sort of coupling. And right now we have two different areas. That one, is a little more broad, but it's the area down here. And let's put on the other version. I'm not sure if this is the regular velocity or the storm relative.
This is storm relative.
Okay,
now.
so this is, and they show the same thing. You notice sort of two distinct areas. Sometimes, as I mentioned, one shows up better than the other, but it's this one here that looks like it's more tornadic in terms of the potential. What is the computer saying, Evan? If you put on storm tracks, it has an algorithm that it can detect the rotation, that we're looking at with the naked eye. And while we're sitting there and going to some other view to talk about maybe the hail or whatever, it's reading that rotation and using an algorithm to determine if it's tornadic or not. And right now, at least the computer thinks that it is not tornadic, but is a larger scale rotation, early mesoscale rotation. Talk about that a little bit, Evan, and explain it to people and why you can't just take that as gospel and say, oh, well, so it says there's no tornado.
Right. So essentially, if you've ever seen and you've been outside when one of these big thunderstorms come up, you can almost see that broad rotation inside of the thunderstorm. You can see the wind circling around. It's really once it starts to tighten up, that's when you get that tornado that forms. So the first thing we look for in these thunderstorms, especially if they are these larger thunderstorms, these supercells, is that broad rotation first, spinning up. And again, if things can tighten up inside that thunderstorm, that's when you get that funnel cloud that starts to form and work its way towards the ground. And what I'm seeing right now, it looks like that we are trying to see this transition into more of that broad circulation. Earlier, we had that hook that was showing up as the storm was back a little bit farther to the west. I'm going to back this up a little bit. There's a brand new severe thunderstorm warning that is just coming out for that storm in some of the same areas that are under the tornado warning, but that extends all the way out to Virginia Beach towards the ocean front. That thunderstorm warning is in effect until 5:45. So if you're along the Virginia Beach ocean front, it's likely going to be about 45 minutes before the storm gets to you. But again, we've got that big part of the storm right now over the James River, heading towards the east end of Newport News. We have seen reports of hail a little bit earlier, 2 inches in diameter, Jeff. Egg-size hail up at the Pipsico Scout Reservation in Surrey County. So that was some very large hail. And again, when we start to see those pinks showing up, I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least pea to marble-size hail around Big Bethel, heading over towards Langley Air Force Base, Big Bethel Road, down towards Hilton Village, Warwick Boulevard, down towards 664, the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve Center. That's right there on Warwick Boulevard, gone by that many times. And then you can see it's just moving into downtown Hampton. Maybe the director can pull up our Hampton camera here in a moment, and we'll be able to see that, what it looks like there in Hampton. And then right along the James River Bridge down towards Crittenden, that's the heaviest part of the storm, getting ready to move into extreme northern areas of Suffolk and over there towards northern Portsmouth and Craney Island that Jeff was mentioning as well. The Monitor Merrimack Memorial Bridge Tunnel is right in line for that storm. You can see there we've put up our Hampton camera, and the rain is certainly coming down there, and it is going to intensify there very, very shortly. Probably in the next 5 minutes, we won't be able to see across the Hampton River there over towards Hampton University. If you're up a little bit further in Hampton and Newport News around Big Bethel, Harwood's Mill, you're seeing that heavy rain. It is finally exiting areas around Lee Hall, and things are clearing out around Williamsburg. Do have another line, though, that is back across parts of Sussex County. We do have a warning there as well for that storm that is just approaching Waverly and Wakefield eventually at the Virginia Diner, and that's where the National Weather Service office is. Over toward Lambs, you can see with that updated radar sweep, severe thunderstorm warning there as well. And then finally, the warning for this storm that is moving down the peninsula. It's going to cross right over the heart of Hampton Roads, the James River Bridge, Monitor Merrimack Memorial Bridge Tunnel, and there's an update on the tornado warning. This again is at 5:05, tornado-producing storm was located over Crittenden near Churchland, moving east at 25 miles per hour. This storm has likely produced a brief tornado, as we said earlier, so that's why we still have that warning that is in effect, and that warning does go here until 5:30. It includes extreme northern parts of Suffolk. If you're near downtown Suffolk, you're not under this warning. It is, again, extreme northern parts of Suffolk up towards Harbor View Boulevard, Harbor View, College Drive up there near TCC Suffolk, and extreme northern parts there of Suffolk, mainly from around Belleville and 164 northward. If you, again, are down in southern Suffolk, central Suffolk, southern Chesapeake, you're not under this warning. Much of Portsmouth is under this tornado warning, so that includes Armistead Forest, Briarwood, Pinehurst, downtown Portsmouth, western parts of that, the West Norfolk Bridge. West Norfolk there, you can see you are under the warning, and that also includes parts of Ghent, Colonial Place, Old Dominion University, all the way up towards Naval Station Norfolk. You are under this tornado warning until 5:30.
Yeah, and Evan, another thing you were pointing out with the heavy rain, heard the same thing with the Virginia Beach tornado, and you get it a lot of times around here. It's not like some of the Midwest tornadoes that you can see coming from a long way away. This would probably be a rain-shrouded tornado, which means you're not going to be able to see it. So if you're, sitting there in extreme northern Suffolk or, in in Norfolk, they're around Willoughby Spit or Willoughby Beach looking, going, I don't see a tornado. I just see a lot of rain. You're not necessarily going to see the tornado because it's, again, ensconced and shrouded with the rain, so you can't see it. And maybe I'm going to wait for the sound of the trains coming. If I don't hear that, then I know it's not a tornado and I'll take cover then. You need to be taking cover now because literally, Evan and I were saying that if I had to place a bet right now, my guess is that it would not be a major tornado on the ground at this point. But I can't say that for certain. And even if it isn't, it could be 2 minutes from now. We saw that with the Virginia Beach storm where it looked like it was nothing, and literally within a few minutes, it was an F3, and then 2 minutes after that, it was back to an F1 and weakening. It was that quick. So these can and do change literally in an instant sometimes as they pulse up and pulse down. So when we say right now things are looking hopeful, that's obviously, you don't want it to be looking bad. You want it to be at least looking hopeful, and then keep your fingers crossed that, maybe it is not a massive tornado out there right now knocking homes down like it did in the Great Neck area. So right now, it is still showing, and the computers, again, as I mentioned, say, we don't think at this immediate time that it's probably, a major tornado. I've seen a couple of tornadoes form when the computers thought it was a broad rotation, so we don't always take that as gospel. That's why you need to take this seriously and take cover immediately if you live in northern areas there of Portsmouth around 564. And thank you. Where's that from?
Yeah, that's our Norfolk Tower camera looking over towards EVMS.
Right, and you can see that looks like sort of like a shelf cloud out in front of it, but can't see any, tornado in there. And this is looking basically in the same general direction that the tornado would be coming from. I think it might be a tiny bit back to the left, but not much. Actually, I think Evan, while I'm talking, is going to go back there and look, because this is EVMS, and that's a little bit more north or northwest of us. I think the tornado would tend to be, you can see things lighten up back here. If there's a tornado, it would tend to be in this area as we look over the retirement community here at Port Norfolk and look out to the north and west. So again, we can visually confirm that it's a dangerous looking storm and one with a lot of rain, but right now one that is not at least showing a visible tornado from a distance. Doesn't mean it doesn't have a tornado wrapped up in the middle of it. Look at still the bright blues there indicating a significant amount of hail just crossing into southern Newport News, and actually now a little bit even more to the east. And if it continues that trend, Willoughby Spit, the naval base, you're going to be getting hit pretty shortly with some, hail as well. Hopefully not enough to damage your car's finish, or put any dents in it that you need body work. But right now, this storm, again, looking hopefully a tiny bit more disorganized. If there is a tornado, it's probably about over Craney Island would be my guess. We don't have that hook to identify it anymore. Going back to the other views where we took, again, a different look using different types of velocities. This is a little bit more spread out now. I think if you've even been watching us, you'll remember we said there were sort of two distinct areas and they were still sort of separate. Now they're combining. So again, probably not at this point a tornado, but easily could become one, again, literally in an instant. So if there is one out there, where would you put it, Evan? My guess is it would be somewhere right about over Craney Island.
Yeah, that would probably be the most likely place. I think what we're really seeing with it now is we saw that shelf cloud that you mentioned, is that it is bringing in those gusty winds. Now, we just got word the tornado warning has been canceled. So the National Weather Service has canceled that tornado warning now, likely because they're seeing the same thing that we were seeing, is that it has become a broad area of just strong gusty winds. We're not seeing that rotation anymore.
And that's something that we struggle with all the time because, we want to tell it like we see it. So I literally was just saying, it doesn't really look like it might be a tornado anymore. And then if we're wrong and it turns out it is still a tornado, or if it isn't and a minute or two later it jumps back into one, then we've endangered people and done the exact opposite of what our job is to do. That's why we always say, it appears as if it could be doing something or this and that. So luckily in this case, we were right. It's no longer looking tornadic, still some very large hail with it and moving to the south and east. So now that we don't have to stay on for the tornado coverage, we're going to throw it back to news in a minute, but I want to first concentrate on this, again, line of now severe thunderstorm, but not tornadic thunderstorm, and time it out as it moves to the south and east. So right now, 5:45 p.m. is when the warning ends. So let's take the very latest. Evan will take his time, pull up what the speed is. We had 35, then the tornado was back to 25. The entire line, what's it moving at now, Evan?
Yep, we're moving it at 35 again.
Moving this at 35. So again, and this isn't the time the rain's going to start. It's not necessarily the time the strongest winds are going to start. It's sort of the leading edge of the most inclement weather. It'll get near Algonquin Park. Well, right about now. It's already past 5:14. Brookfield Park in the next couple of minutes. Downtown Norfolk at 5:20. Azalea Acres 5:22. Then Burton's. Then Ballyland Shores just before the bottom of the hour. Bay Lake Beach right at the bottom of the hour. Aragona also at the bottom of the hour. And then Bay Island eventually at 5:35. So now that it's only, unfortunately, it is fortunate it's not tornadic, but still a severe weather maker moving through the area. So now we can actually, as I said, go back to regular programming. We'll toss it to break and we'll get your news stories organized for you and be back with those. And of course, a lot more weather coverage as well coming up.